And right on cue, today drops, well, today, you're listening to this the next day. Yesterday drops the perfect proof of exactly what we were talking about in the last episode. The Big Ten and the SEC just sent a joint white paper to congressional lawmakers, a straight up 10-page takedown of Cody Campbell's Saving College Sports push to like have everybody all bring together every FBS media right under one big federal government umbrella. That's right. They want the Big 12 and the ACC to mooch off of the SEC and the Big Ten and take money that they do not deserve and give it to them, but not on Sankey and Petitti's watch, because they commissioned a study, put the data in black and white, because they got all the data, because they've been doing this for so long, because Cody Campbell is just making up stuff at this point. I'm going to try not to cuss. Making up stuff at this point out of thin air. This isn't some press release or anything like that. These are the biggest dogs in the yard, linking arms and saying, not today, to a couple of Girl Scouts in the Big 12 and the ACC. You can think about it like two rival quarterbacks who've been battling for years, suddenly calling the same audible to, against the blitz. The white paper, which was brought to us by Ross Dellinger, great reporting once again by him. If you're not following Ross Dellinger, you don't know what you're doing. All right. Ross Dellinger is the man. The white paper calls the whole idea well-intentioned but misguided. They lay out with numbers why forcing 136 FBS programs into one giant national package that the government controls would actually shrink the pie instead of growing it. And of course, they know that because they've been running these numbers for years. Ted Carter just said, Ohio State president Ted Carter just said the other week that adding too many teams will destroy brands. Campbell's group throws around, his $6 billion, $7 billion incremental revenue fantasy over the next decade. Like one big NFL style bundle magically triples everything. But they fail to show us the math, because the Big Ten and the SEC's own projections, backed by real market data, what they've actually been doing, not like fake stuff, what they've actually been doing, say the current setup where each conference negotiates its own deals hits $10.5 billion in average annual value by 2036 without touching a single contract or handling the keys from some, government Washington panel out there. But the Big 12 and ACC, they hate that, because they know they have no chance at getting anywhere near what the Big Ten and the SEC are making. Let me repeat that. $10.5 billion. That's more than Cody Campbell promises from their forced pool that they would have. The white paper even pulls the NBA receipt. The league just went 2.8 times bigger on its rights, but 80% of the inventory still sells locally, not in just one giant bubble. College football already does the smart version of that. What the NBA just found out, college football is already doing, because it's what's smart. It's what's good for everybody. Well, not everybody, but it's what's good for those who are trying to make money. The Big Ten is pulling in over $1 billion annually. The SEC is also over $1 billion through ESPN. Those numbers keep climbing because the market rewards the product, not because some bureaucrat redraws the schedule and then poof, the Big 12 and ACC and Group of Five programs can start yelling, "Oh, the system's broken. Government, come please and help give us more money and fix us for everything." And yeah, government involvement makes total sense if you're a school, staring at rising costs, Title IX bills. The ACC has plenty of Olympic sports depicted on their covers. These programs are struggling to keep the lights on in some ways. Not all of them, but some of them. Nobody denies that. But for the programs that have actually been working toward this, investing in facilities, NIL collectives, transfer portal halls, and roster depth, this levels the field by dragging the top down, not lifting the bottom up. It's like forcing the starting lineup to share their paychecks evenly with the scout team and expecting the same number of wins. Look, the historical parallel of the white paper leans on hard. Look back at 1984 when the Supreme Court in NCAA versus the Board of Regents said the NCAA couldn't control all the TV rights anymore. Decentralization, that's the key word here, exploded. Conferences started cutting their own deals, innovation kicked in, revenue skyrocketed. The old centralized model had been choking growth. Now we're talking about going backward, letting the choking growth model come back, letting a federal appointed group negotiate for thousands of games, override the conference schedules, maybe even force Alabama to play some directional school on national TV every week because of parity, right? Which they care nothing about. That's the whole issue with this. They don't actually care about all this stuff, right? The white paper spells it out that many teams that have many constraints makes it dangerously unworkable, as they put it. The NFL has 32 clubs, 272 regular season games. We've got 136 FBS programs. The logistics alone would be an absolute circus. And I don't trust the government to do all that much. Sorry, I'm not trying to get political here. But especially when you consider how many real money-making contenders are from the Big Ten and the SEC. On FanDuel right now for the 2026 National Championship, 7 of the top 10 favorites sit in either the Big Ten or the SEC. Ohio State, Oregon, Penn State, Michigan, USC from that side. Georgia, Texas, Alabama, Ole Miss from their side. The market already knows where the talent is, the money is, and where the eyeballs live. Pulling rights and letting a panel redistribute doesn't create more competitive balance because it just punishes the teams that have already been spending and already have huge bills that they're going to have to pay because they're improving their facilities, they're improving their stadiums and doing this stuff. The white paper shows that a Big Ten SEC alliance is tighter than many people thought. They're not just talking about enforcement or eligibility anymore. They are jointly lobbying Congress to protect the autonomy that lets them keep innovating. Meanwhile, the Big 12 and the ACC, with a lot of their leaders and boosters, are pushing the exact opposite. They see federal pooling as their only lifeline because they can't make the money on their own. So their move quietly widens the gap. The power to keep pulling ahead while the rest hope that the government comes in, Washington, whoever they are, comes in and evens the score. And it all comes back to the premise of the previous segment that I did. The SEC still isn't breaking away alone. They can't afford to at this point. They can't do it. There's a multitude of reasons. We can get into all of them if you really want me to, but there's a multitude of reasons. I've covered them on multiple different videos. But moments like today show why they absolutely need the Big Ten with them. Together, they can push back on outside forces trying to rewrite the rules. Alone, one of them gets isolated and the antitrust lawsuits or political pressure could crush their solo act. This white paper is them saying, we'll handle our own governments. Thank you. We'll do it on our own. Because if Cody Campbell's plan or something like the SAFE Act or something gains real traction and ties into the House settlement codification, the choice becomes binary. Submit to federal oversight that could force revenue sharing across 136 schools. 136 schools, redraw alignment and nationalize scheduling, or step outside the NCAA entirely. Create that 40-team Super League that's a mix of the Big Ten and the SEC, maybe a few other teams, maybe Miami, maybe Florida State, a few other teams that are comfortable spending money, and create your own playoff, right? Have your own rules. It would be cleaner. It would be more professional. I know people would hate it, but it would be NFL light for sure. But it ends the beautiful chaos of the 130 plus schools still dreaming on Saturdays. No more random group of 5 upset, special, lighting up November or anything like that. No more 100-year rivalries that are stretched across conference to conference. And then suddenly none of those exist. The white paper makes the path clearer than ever. The Big Ten and SEC aren't against helping the sport grow. That is not what they are against. They're against surrendering their own hard-earned growth so that moochers can come take it away. They've shown through data that the current model already projects enough growth to keep investing in athletes, facilities, and yes, even the Olympic sports at their own schools. Government stepping in might feel fair on paper for the have-nots, but it punishes the program, it punishes the conferences that are actually competing at the cutting edge. Cody Campbell made a ridiculous comment on X, and I would need to review that at some point in time. I don't have time to review it in this video, but for now, the SEC needs the Big Ten. The Big Ten is happy to stand shoulder to shoulder when the outside world tries to force a new structure. They're building the moat together. They're building it around. They're building their protection. And until the rest of college football offers a better alternative that gives, that doesn't just give all government control, that partnership is going to stay rock solid because they need each other. The Super League conversation just got a whole lot louder. The tradition, a little bit more fragile, but the Big Ten isn't going to give up without a fight. Still holding the cards, still knowing exactly where this is heading, and still knowing that any team, not just the top tier teams, the big teams, the little teams, all of them are better off in the Big Ten.